fantastic content. Another thank you to the NFL for underwriting today's event. Again, Joe, Jess, Paul, Erin, thank you all very much. I'm going to sort of kick it off for you guys and the group listening in, sort of highlighting how 2020 was another year of innovation, growth, and creativity in the gaming space, from the mobile casual, eSports, console, and then sort of the streaming and content play. Let's sort of set the tone by sort of going through some quick stats on how vast gaming is and how much growth there's been. In 2020, 65% of US households have a gaming device. 38 million have a console, and that's a 30% growth from 2017. This past year, there was about 1.5 billion in esports ad spend and sponsorships, and that's nearly a 40% growth from 2017. Sort of the big stat that I think will kick things off is that there's about 200 million unique visitors in gaming in 2020. And a lot of those tuning in today, I want to know, where do you start? How do I define a gamer, and how do I define these different channels, each of which is very unique? Paul, let's start with you. PepsiCo brands like AMP, Game Fuel, Doritos have been in this space for a while and really established yourself as a player. How are you differentiating between the different gaming channels I just mentioned, and how do you define a gamer, if you can even provide a singular definition of a gamer?
Yeah, totally. So to kind of kick things off from a larger gaming ecosystem perspective, we really bucket it down to 5 major players. You have the publishers that are the ones that are creating the games themselves, the Activisions, the Riots, the Blizzards. You have the leagues that are hosting large scale competitions. You have individual teams that compete in the leagues. You have media platforms like Twitch, YouTube, Facebook Gaming that are producing and pushing out gaming content. And then you obviously have influencers who are growing more and more every single day, it seems like. So for us, what's great from a brand perspective, from a PepsiCo lens, is consumers interact at every single step of the funnel. And we are able to unlock different opportunities depending on what our core brand objectives are. So doing a partnership with Call of Duty and Activision on Dew and Doritos, or working with some of our major influencers like Dr. Disrespect and Courage for Game Fuel. It really kind of depends on what the core brand KPIs are, to where kind of how we sub-segment each individual channel. As we kind of see like who gamers are, like from my perspective, some of the stats you mentioned were spot on. Like 66% of the US population is now considered gamers. And really it's interesting to see how the different segment out. Like you obviously have mobile gamers, which are very, very different from console gamers. And even within the hardcore audience, we know that about 70% of fans only follow one particular genre. So if you're a League of Legends fan, you're probably not following Call of Duty. So really kind of understanding who the audience we're trying to go after really kind of dictates the property and platform we decide to partner with.
Awesome. Erin or Jess, when we previously connected, you mentioned you've had a tremendous success in both partnering with streamers and influencers in sort of the esports console space, as well as a lot of success in the more casual. Can you tell us about your sort of evolving approach and messaging to fit in naturally with both audience types? Jess, would you like to kick us off?
Sure. Yeah, our journey in esports and kind of casual gaming has only been about 2 or 3 years. I think probably out of everyone in this group, Grubhub is a novice, which is kind of strange because I think gamers and Grubhub go hand in hand, like eating food, watching you're watching a stream, or on the gamer and esports athlete side, like it's a natural part of their habit and routine. But as we were thinking about how to size this opportunity, we really took like 3 years to kind of like figure it out. And where we landed was we kind of needed to set our vision, like what are we going after? And we set up the aggressive and I would say ambitious goal of kind of being the food delivery, official food delivery brand of esports and gaming. But we broke it down between 2 audiences because that's like a huge TAM. The first is hardcore. We knew we needed to invest in like the hardcore gaming ecosystem, be it Call of Duty or Fortnite or League. And we'll talk a little bit about what we're doing with League Now later. But then we also knew, the casual gaming space is massive. It's even bigger than hardcore. So like, how do we dip in there? And the way that we think about it, as we think about kind of the hardcore gaming space, as like the space that we really want to engage and create a tight commitment with that community. And the casual space is more episodic. It's connected to kind of major launches and milestones like that. We'll dip in and have a point of view. We recently did a stunt with Animal Crossing, and that connected there. But I think what we unlocked is we can't invest in one. We need to do both if we really kind of want to own this space.
Yeah, and I'll jump in there to kind of complement a lot of the things that Jessica said. So within P&G, I work on and lead our Gillette gaming and esports programs. And I would say that, shaving is obviously just as natural, when it comes to shaving and gaming, they go together. But I think where we started our journey, at least on Gillette, was, we have a really long history within sports marketing. And so our first kind of forte into the space was really through esports. Esports, I think it was really easy for our leadership at the time to kind of see the natural parallels. And so that's really kind of where we started our journey, I would say about 5 or 6 years ago already. Proud to say that we were kind of one of the first non-endemic brands entering the space. And, we found and learned a lot of the same things that Jessica was speaking to. While we're still active within esports and, as Paul was saying, there's still a huge opportunity to marry the specific touch points to your specific objectives. We've definitely broadened our focus beyond esports to the more casual gaming set. And so, just as we've kind of been saying, it's such a massive industry and, there are so many different ways that you can attack it. It's kind of akin to saying you have a gaming and esports strategy is similar to saying that you have a music strategy. Are you reaching country music fans, with radio? Are you reaching rap music fans at a concert? There's just so many different ways to approach it. So I think, always as marketers, really understanding who are you trying to reach and what are you trying to do with those consumers, and kind of marrying back, okay, what are those consumers into? What type of genres are they playing? And then, what are the right tactics to actually get the objectives that you're trying to drive, whether that's brand affinity, whether that's actually direct conversion, et cetera. There's just so many different ways that you can attack it.
Yeah, it's almost the opportunities are really endless, and you got to really be KPI driven. I think this sort of dovetails into what I want to discuss next, is sort of the evolution of your sort of gaming strategy. Like all of you guys have been very successful, but we all know success is not going to happen overnight, but each of your brands are taking very different strategies. Joe, I would love to hear sort of from you guys. When we talked before this, you mentioned that you're establishing Bud Light as an endemic brand over time to become the beer of all fans, not esports, gaming, not just your traditional sports and those leagues and that audience. Can you tell us a little more about sort of that evolution for you guys as a brand?
Yeah, for Bud Light and Bud Light Seltzer, I mean, we're the biggest brand in the industry, and we have to be able to serve all types of fans and esport fans and gaming fans in general, right? Really how we look at it, and it's similar to, I think, how a lot of folks on this call have already talked about it, is, for us, it has to be a mix of both or everything, right? We look at partnerships, whether it's our League of Legends league deal, we've got team deals with several LCS teams, and we have influencer partnerships with like Tim the Tap Man. We also have, an own content strategy. We've got a Bud Light Twitch channel. And in 2020, it was the largest brand Twitch channel on Twitch. And we had the largest brand stream of all time with our own tournament, The Battle of the Best, right? And then as we look forward, the real evolution, and I know Grubhub touched on this, is like, how do you tap into cultural moments? So we have no business in the console wars, but we decided, how about we do something like Bud Light's about fun? We created a gaming console that is a real gaming console. It has a built-in projector. It's in the shape of a 6-pack, and it has a refrigerator that actually cools your beers in it. And what we did with it is we just made a few of them. We gave one to Tim the Tap Man. We auctioned another one off for charity. It sold for $24,000. Thank you. And it was just a cultural conversation. You can't sustain that. We're not going to make thousands of them, but we want to be part of the conversation. It really is an opportunity for us to get some earned media and really connect with our consumers in new and interesting ways.
I want to sort of touch on that cultural moments and being part of the conversation. I think each of you, sort of the influencer streaming community is really key for this, but sort of finding your voice and the right streaming partnership, it's a big space. It can be sort of difficult to navigate. So Paul, does PepsiCo go about finding those sort of natural alignments with the streaming community and influencers there?
Definitely. So we work a ton with streamers, whether it's on the Game Fuel side with Dr. Disrespect, Courage, Scump, Hector, or some of the work that we've done with Doritos and the Disruptor series that we built out in partnership with Twitch and Twitch Rivals, working with Yasuo and Hafu, et cetera. Really, I would say the main goal for us when we're looking at influencers, making sure that, one, we find someone that already resonates well with the brand. We have to make sure that whatever we're doing needs to come across as authentic. If they're not a fan of energy drinks or snacks or CSDs, it's not going to be a good partnership for anybody. And realistically, this community is very quick to call out BS. So making sure that we resonate. Next, what I'd like to say, and this is a little difficult from a brand manager perspective, but really allowing the influencers and the content creators to take the lead approach here. Like, look, there's a reason their brands have grown this much and their communities are so ravenous for their content. They know their brands better than anybody else. So for us, making sure that we can find authentic and kind of meaningful ways to layer in our brand messaging, but really having them be the lead creator to kind of convey that messaging is key. That's how we see lifts in brand affinity and purchase intent. It's really when we show that we understand this individual community, and we're not trying to change anything or be disruptive. We're trying to integrate and kind of prop these guys up and help build on what they've already started.
That's an interesting point about letting the influencers who have their own brand sort of take the wheel. I'd love to hear from Joe, Erin, and Jess. Specifically, Jess and Erin both mentioned previously that you guys are taking a more holistic approach to these partnerships. Are you guys sort of letting your influencers take the wheel, or is it a much more sort of a calculated partnership?
Yeah, having worked with Grubhub works with a lot of influencers. So we've learned early on that you have to give them the creative freedom. They know their audience better than we do. So you have to just like say a little prayer and trust in them and go from there. And that's exactly the methodology we use with our partners as well. And thankfully, we've had really great creative partners where there's not been any like brand risk. We've been partnering with like Team SoloMed, TSM for a while. We are launching, actually I can't say it until tomorrow, we're launching a partnership with an LCS team tomorrow, and they already produce a ton of really great content. But it was funny, I was talking to my team today, and the team that I can't mention created a bunch of content that we're releasing tomorrow, and the video is like 20 minutes long, maybe 15 minutes long. I'm exaggerating. But when we think about the space that we play in as brand marketers, what are the length of content that we usually like review? It's a 6-second, it's a 15-second, it's a 30-second. So when you get that piece of content, I was shocked when I initially saw it. And my team is like, you have to trust the process. When you think about the audience that's receiving this, they're used to sitting in front of their screens, watching kind of gameplay for hours at end. So long form content to them is accepted. They want to see these streamers, they want to see these teams perform. And so I think as far as kind of giving them the opportunity to create content without a lot of like review is pretty critical. And I think that was one of the insights that we learned in this space where, they know their audience, they know what to say, they know how to integrate you into the content. So I think in order for any of the brands that are listening today, if you want to get invested in this space, you have to let go some of the control.
Yeah, I'll build on that. I think what we've seen from influencers, streamers, professional players in this space, we work with a lot of influencers on Gillette, and I've never seen anything like the fans of streamers or of gamers, just the pull that they have with their communities, the fact that they're spending sometimes upwards of 12, 13 hours on stream with them every single day and really forging that direct connection through, chat, through social media. It's just incredible. And so really the approach that we've taken is building, long-term, really tight-knit relationships with the streamers and the influencers that we work with. We have a program, it's kind of our flagship program called the Gillette Gaming Alliance, where we work with top streamers around the world. We started working with Dr. Lupo last year, who's just an incredible streamer. He's one of the top 10 on Twitch. He's totally, very well aligned with all of our brand ideals. He's an incredible dad, just an incredible guy all around. And, just doing things like, actually having the brand talk to him and making sure, that we're really forging the connection has just really been so powerful for us of, giving them enough to understand, okay, here's what the brand is all about. Here's kind of the key messages. Here are the things that they're trying to achieve, and then letting them run with it. And probably my favorite example of that was, we've been working with him. We create streams, we do a bunch of content, but kind of heading into COVID, we actually were planning on producing a commercial starring Dr. Lupo, and we had it all scripted and we had this plan. And then COVID hit, and of course, production gets shut down. We don't have a way to do that anymore. And so what we ended up doing is kind of, sitting down with him and saying, hey, we still want to produce something. You're a great content creator. What should we do? And we ended up actually shipping him a body cam camera that he wore and kind of had the camera facing him. And so it's all totally like POV style of him going through his morning routine, shaving before he jumps on stream. And we worked in a bunch of kind of Easter eggs in terms of the music that we use in the commercial is the same song that he plays when before his stream is starting. So when it comes on Twitch, when it's actually an ad, his fans, the community actually thinks that his stream is about to start. So it's almost like a Pavlovian response. So just little things like that like no creative agency in the world would probably ever think of. But when you kind of give them the creative freedom to run with it, it's just been so powerful for us.
It's so interesting because the influencers and streamers know the audience. They know the game passion points better than any of us here. And the common theme is sort of letting them sort of be the guide creative. Is that sort of penetrating, so that mentality being applied now to other parts of your marketing business? So allowing your other influencers, maybe in their standard social or more, let's say, user or customer-based creative, allow more leeway in other realms.
I mean, I can jump in on that one. I mean, you're signing endorsement deals with either teams or athletes, right? Because you want to tap into their audience base. So as a brand, you'd be crazy to try and force them into what you want, right? Like you want to align with people that share your core values. For Bud Light, we want to bring fun to the world. So we want to find people that have big, fun personalities. We saw a fun interaction today between my Tim the Tatman and Paul's Dr. Disrespect, chirping on Twitter. And, the thing that we love about Tim is like, he's such a proud Bud Light and Bud Light Seltzer drinker, that he was like clapping back to Dr. Disrespect. And to us, like, that is the brand ambassador that I would sign 10 times out of 10, right? Like he embodies the brand and he loves when we send him product. He wants to help curate product lineups moving forward. Like, you can't put a dollar value on that. And I think it's same as with teams, right? Like we're asking them to create content for our Twitch channels. They've grown to be the teams that they are because they've figured it out. Like when I first started, I was absolutely confused by what they were trying to put out on the channel. And I'm like, you know what? Like I'll trust you. I believe it. And now I kind of just sit back. I'm like, here's how I want my brand integrated. Like I want it to be at the bar scene, like, beers on ice. Like I want it to have that feel, but like you guys do what you need to do because your audience and you have to lean into that. And I think it's bigger than just esports. I mean, we do the same with, as a company across our partnerships. And we've also been looking at like some, partnership deals where the athlete is not only an endorsement deal, but they actually have skin in the game. They're helping to grow the brand because they're now a co-owner in the brand. And it really does help to grow because you get a lot of that added value, the extra mile with your partner on that.
And I think the other important thing to note is, esports isn't at its infancy right now. Like these players and teams have been around for a while and they've learned how to like professionally work with brands, like to monetize the partnership. So like we need to give them more credit. Like it isn't about, you give them the brand, and I think they're really sophisticated in how they create content. How they use your brand to appeal to their audience. Like, they're really sophisticated. I mean, at the end of the day, yes, they're streamers and they're playing games, but they're amazing creators. And I think, to Erin's point, like, you know, giving Dr. Lupo like the ability to create content for the brand, I do think that it isn't just unique to the gaming space. I think more influencers are doing. At the end of the day, I think that, you know, we have to give them more credit for being able to be a creative content channel for a lot of, you know, what I think brands have maybe historically failed at doing, which is like finding like the perfect piece of content to connect with an audience. And I think they already naturally do that.
Yeah, and I think to that point, I think that's one of the major differences between esports and gaming from like a traditional sports. It's really the fact that these guys, like to Erin's earlier point, they're streaming 6 to 8 hours a day. They know how to retain an audience and they know how to breed engagement. And really, just from our perspective, the fact that they are this close and intimate with their fan bases is super valuable to us, because their fans know what they like, what they don't like, how they talk, what brands they resonate with, what brands they don't resonate with. So when we're able to bring a great partnership to them and they feel some sort of stake and ownership in it, that's where their audience realizes like, oh, wow, like this is a product that I actually want to try, as opposed to maybe a traditional athlete deal where like everyone might know who a professional NBA player and an NFL player is, but no one really actually knows exactly who they are or the kind of their real personality.
Yeah, I'll just jump in real quick on that thought around kind of the difference between esports streamers and traditional athletes. I think we're starting to see that turn, right? In terms of, you know, kind of the behind the scenes look at who athletes are. But to, you know, kind of answer your earlier question, Adam, in terms of, are we giving that much creative control to some of the other, you know, potential athletes that we're working with, for example? I would say it depends. You know, it depends on kind of how equipped they are towards creating that content. You know, we're seeing more and more athletes that are becoming TikTok stars in their own right. And I think we're seeing fans that are really hungry to see who these guys are without their helmet on. And so that's the type of stuff that we're trying to do. But there's always kind of that element of like, are they ready for that? Have they built that up? Where that's been totally proven out within gaming and within esports. And I think we're starting to see it within traditional sports, but I wouldn't say it's quite as far as advanced as it is within gaming and esports.
Thanks for that feedback and that perspective there. What I'm taking away so far is that you guys have been able to create, all of your brands, really amazing content and engaging partnerships that can boost brand affinity. And even, I know all of you have also used gaming as a vehicle now for e-commerce, at least at an experimental level. Joe, I know you guys have worked with Drizzly, integrations through gaming. You mentioned before, you guys have the #1 brand channel on Twitch and have a ton of, you know, of your own content. How, if any, are there any struggles still today with measurement? And I'm really most interested to see how sort of the accuracy of your viewership measurement has changed over the years.
Yeah, so that was a bit of a loaded question, so I'll try and unpack a bit. So I think like at its core, esports and gaming has really been trying to like normalize and figure out what the measurement is, right? Is it average minute audience? Is it the concurrence? Is it peak viewership, total viewers? And we've kind of played around with all of it this year. You know, our metric for the biggest Twitch stream of all time was total viewers, and it was 9.5 million. So it really depends. And I think concurrence is what's really sticking with us, but we've really started to look at even more is like, what's that average view time? Because if I hit 50,000 concurrence for 30 seconds, it's great. If I drop down to 20,000 for the next 20 minutes, it's really like 20,000 concurrent, right? And what we've started to see is with some of these platforms like league produced content and team produced content is people will come in, even if it's a smaller base, they'll stay for 20 to 30 minutes, which is insane. Like as a marketer that you have someone's captive attention, they come willingly to your brand ecosystem for 30 minutes at a time. It's really something that we need to figure out. How do we keep optimizing and making a better experience? And you started to touch on e-com. That's one of the ways. Like how do you utilize chat, which I'm largely talking about Twitch with this. But that Twitch chat, there's so much opportunity to connect one-to-one with consumers in real time. And if you do discount codes, you can do merch, you can do giveaways. There's a lot of really interesting things that I think we've barely started to scratch the surface on. But I think as we continue to invest more in this ecosystem, I think a lot of marketers are going to figure out really unique ways to really make this platform work and get those one-to-one connections with consumers.
Yeah, and I brought up ecom for the collective group because when all of you have had success there, and it seems that measurement there is a little more straightforward. And my feeling is that the success that you guys may have had there has given you guys the necessary tools and resources to continue to expand what you're doing in gaming. Paul, I know you guys have been started this recently with Game Fuel. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, totally. So obviously in COVID, I think two major things really happened, especially in the gaming space. One, we saw massive lifts in ecom. Like we've seen the ecom space accelerate like 5 years in the future, just from people being captive at home. And then obviously gaming has grown in exponentially. We saw at the beginning of lockdowns, gaming was up 75%, just in terms of total amount of time played. So for us, Game Fuel had this kind of unique opportunity that we launched in December, which is our first direct-to-consumer site for PepsiCo beverages, where we're now selling directly our products to consumers, which is awesome for us. And it's a great pilot opportunity for us to test out how this new direct-to-consumer model can really work, and really leveraging Game Fuel as that springboard for us to like how we can kind of monetize and galvanize the gaming audience to purchase Game Fuel. It's been really successful for us so far. We're really excited about it, and leveraging all of our different partnerships through influencer discount codes, or driving awareness through our partnership with CDL, which will be launching next week, which we're very excited about. It's been a great kind of springboard for us to kind of test out this new kind of emerging platform for us. And then I would say from a broader perspective, how we're measuring success, I would say like that's really the key here. I like to think like esports and gaming is still kind of in its leather helmet days. We're still trying to figure out exactly where real value is. So for us, we actually had a partnership with Nielsen this year, where we had a full year study across all of our different brand partnerships, from publishers, leagues, teams, influencers, and actually measuring them against each other in terms of brand affinity, purchase intent, awareness, to really kind of understand what's moving the needle for us. And then not only is that great learnings for Game Fuel, but for our other brands in the portfolio that are looking to get into the space, now we know we have a better understanding on how we can pull different levers to meet different KPIs based on what the brand objectives are.
Very interesting. Erin, I know that Gillette has experimented with e-com too in gaming. I believe the program was Bids for Blades. And I think the execution was slightly different than what Joe or Paul have done. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, I would love to tell you about that. So yes, we have our Bits for Blades program, which is a kind of a piece of our Gillette Gaming Alliance program. Really what we do is we work with, the streamers to promote the Bits for Blades program, where if a consumer goes on to Gillette.com, which is our DTC business, we've been running that for about 4 or 5 years now, kind of within the DTC upstarts that we've seen within the grooming space. And if a consumer goes onto the website, the more that they buy, the more that they spend, and the more bits that they get. So Twitch bits are, for those on the Zoom call who might not be aware, they're kind of a virtual currency that consumers will buy in the Twitch ecosystem. And so it's been incredibly successful for us. And again, that goes back to kind of the word of mouth power of influencers. We literally did not put any other paid media demand creation behind it. It was all throughout streamer promotion. And what we ended up accomplishing was that we sold out what had been intended to be a 6-month program in about 2 weeks last spring. And then we re-upped it. We gave the same amount of bits and we sold it out again in another 2 weeks. And so we're going to be coming back with it. The Gillette Gaming Alliance is officially relaunching in a couple of weeks. So that's been incredibly successful for us to prove out that yes, consumers will actually, convert off of these products. I think that for us, as we look at, making more and more investments into esports, yes, we're looking at things like brand health studies, brand lift studies. But at the end of the day, we need to prove out, are we moving the needle with household penetration? So things like that, things like, offline sales lift measurement that we're looking towards are really what's going to be able to unlock more and more investment for us in the space.
And Jess, I think Grubhub has a unique perspective here. You have to take a look at the whole funnel. And you've told me you've been using gaming to really drive brand affinity, but your business really is driven by orders at the end of the day. How is this sort of being balanced? And what are you focusing on most today? And how is that changing?
Yeah, well, I will say that we've evolved to like a full funnel measurement approach. When we first started doing integration with streamers, it was Myth and Bjergsen on TSM. We were actually measuring it from a more lower funnel perspective. We were doing like cost, response, like cost per response. And we were trying to compare it to like how we measure TV. And initially we were like, this makes sense. Oh my gosh, it's like a similar like CPR. This is a channel we completely unlocked. I think over time, we weren't giving the partnerships that we were investing in enough credit for like the full funnel impact that they were creating for us. So, you know, we obviously do brand lift studies with a lot of our partnerships. We look at, from an awareness perspective, AMA and concurrent views, but then we look at CPCs. And, you know, what we're seeing some success too is just from like an LTV perspective. And what's really interesting and kind of what we're, and this is an incremental audience. This is like an incremental like conversion for us, which I think is really, really exciting. Whenever we look at opportunities, we look at the incrementality of them. And that's been really exciting. The LTV has been even more exciting. And I think that proves out how we've been able to connect with this audience in an authentic way. They're coming back to our brand. So we're going to continue to focus on that over time.
It appears we're getting close to time. I'm going to come full circle and sort of tie things back to sports, the Super Bowl. I know looking at the big eSports leagues, it looks like they've taken a chapter from traditional leagues as they're sort of evolving into the franchise model. My question to the group is what do you think the traditional sports world can learn from eSports and vice versa?
I would say more from the vice versa, that maybe traditional sports could learn a little bit more about the streaming, the content creation. So you look at like what happens in a time like COVID, and you know, people will return to stadiums for sports games. That's never going to change. But they were able to, and esports team in particular, were able to tap into such a larger audience base than who could come to just a typical game, right? And how do you continue to scale? I've got 47 NFL and NHL partners. Like, how do we continue to bring more engaging content to their fan bases? Because I can reach hundreds of thousands, if not millions, versus the 40, 50,000 in venue. And I think that's really the shift. Now, I think we could probably talk for the next 2 hours on, do we think that traditional sports model will work in esports? And I think we'll probably just pass on that for the time being.
Yeah, Joe, I completely agree. I think from a traditional sports lens, like, the one thing that we kind of saw in esports right now is like how they're kind of embracing the fact that they're this digital only really offering here, and like how they can kind of on a fly, like the fact that Call of Duty League, I'll use them as the example, all their live events got shut down, and within a couple of weeks they were able to flip the switch and get back on a pure digital engagement perspective and really retain similar viewership, which is really impressive and kind of given what they were kind of dealt with. And really, I would say from an esports and gaming perspective, I think traditional sports can learn a lot just how to keep engaging their audience and really doubling down on that digital first kind of consumer, which is really the holy grail right now.
Yeah, and I think one thing that we'll continue to see is a lot more of the confluence and crossover between sports, esports, and gaming. You know, we've seen a lot of professional athletes during the time of COVID when, you know, they're not all able to be practicing with their teams, you know, start up their own Twitch channels. We've been doing a lot of integration between, you know, what we're doing kind of within our traditional NFL sponsorship. And then we now have a partnership with EA and with Madden. And we actually had our lead talent for this year, Saquon Barkley, play Madden in kind of their Tuesday night content series. And so there's just so much kind of natural opportunity. You know, I think that, you know, many of the more traditional sports side of things is really learning a lot from gaming and from esports in terms of, you know, engagement on Twitch, all things digital. So I think, you know, them kind of going after it and learning a lot is really what we'll continue to see with a lot of that confluence.
I think we're sort of winding down here. I think it's been a great conversation. We can talk for hours about this. Gaming is totally evolving, monthly, and there's endless ways to really integrate and engage with players. And I think all of us here and those listening are really excited about how this space will continue to mature. And Jake, I'm going to turn it over to you to move the agenda.
Yeah, that sounds great, guys. That was a great conversation. So thank you so much, Jess, Joe, Paul, Erin, Adam, for closing out day one of the Brand Innovators Super Bowl Summit. That was a great conversation, hearing your perspective on this fast-growing, evolving space. So it's really cool to hear experts in the space for sure. Loved your thoughts. And this transcends whether it's esports or gaming or any partnership, but loved your thoughts on trusting your partners to know their audiences and then let go of some of that control to allow real authentic creativity to drive greater audience connection. I think that transcends like everything. And that's just, thinking about brand innovators and thinking about the work that you all do every day. I think that's fantastic advice and a great way to sort of end the session today. So really, really appreciate that. Really cool stuff. Loved also hearing the e-com growth, right? That's something that we think a lot about at Roku, and something we just did our own study on, of seeing, over 25% of Super Bowl viewers are going to order in food from the likes of Grubhub. So excited to see how that works out too. So again, thank you guys, appreciate it, and I'm going to hand it over to you, David.
Yeah, thank you, Jake. Again, to all of our panelists just now, that was awesome. We have been talking a lot about esports and gaming in our events lately. It's a big topic for our community and something that we are not going to slow down on. So we're going to continue to cover this space. So thank you again to all of our panelists. I've got my Grubhub/seamless delivery on its way right now. But we are going to wrap today's program, and I'll give you a little bit of a taste. Tomorrow, we kick off at 11 a.m. sharp Eastern time with not only John Burns, the CEO of TB12, Tom Brady's lifestyle company, the GOAT himself. So we're going to kick off with John, and then we have a back-to-back series of Super Bowl advertisers, speakers from Chipotle, Mountain Dew, E-Trade, and DoorDash, talking about what went into their Super Bowl ads for this coming weekend's game. And then we have a little bit of a March Madness preview with GMC and Phillip Brooks. And then we're going to wrap with our part 2 of our future of sports marketing and that post-pandemic landscape. So I hope to see you all tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern sharp. It's going to be amazing. And thank you to all of our speakers, all of our sponsors, Jake, our guest MC, and everybody for tuning in today. Have a great rest of your evening. I'll see you tomorrow.